Welcome. This is August the 4th, 2019. It's a good day to meditate. I'd like for you to join with me for 3 songs. And I'd like for you to spend most of your time focusing on your heart. You can go other places, other chakras, but always come back to the heart, okay? The world is on fire. And there's all kinds of things going on. Political unrest throughout the world. Climate change throughout the world. But the biggest thing that we face is each other. And that's something that we can deal with. The biggest thing that we deal with is each other. What is missing is empathy. When I was a little boy, my mother took great care to always show me when I did something bad, what did that other person, why did you hurt the little girl? What do you think she felt like when you did that, or when you said that? What do you think that little boy felt like when you took his toy? Would you like him taking your toy? Do you think he's any different than you? She taught me empathy. It was a conscious teaching. What I see is a complete lack of that in today's world. I was walking down the street the other day and meditating on people, which is something that just happens sometimes. And what I saw was that people were caught up in their own world, very much their own world. It was like they had these bonnets that went out, like you would see on the Handmaiden series on TV right now, where the women are wearing these bonnets, so that when they're wearing them, they can't look at anybody without being blocked. And what I saw as they were walking down the street, these men and women, is that these bonnets were full of things that they were familiar with. People they knew, their ideas about race, their ideas about religion, their ideas about politics, their ideas about anything really. And as they were walking down the street, anything that was unlike how they had it together was a threat to them. So you would observe, for instance, someone who was Christian coming past a woman wearing a hijab, Islam, and there would be this feeling of being threatened, an inability to even recognize that person as even being a person. Democrats walking past Republicans. Nobody looks through the other person's eyes. I watched this horrible documentary about 30 years ago on the Holocaust. And part of it, they showed pictures of these German SS soldiers that were at Auschwitz. Well-fed, nice uniforms, men and women. And they asked them, they said, how could you do this to another person? And their answer was, well, they're not people, they're Jews. Oh my God. But isn't any different today? Are the immigrants people, or are they just immigrants? I see people going into crowds and shooting other people they don't even know because they don't think of them as being human, as having families, lovers, friends, children. No empathy. One country against the other, no empathy. It's okay to go to war and kill somebody you don't even know because they're not really people, they're just enemy soldiers. No empathy. Okay to let the poor die in Somalia because they're not human. Do you really believe that? Walk by the homeless person and treat them less than you would a dog. No empathy. If you walk down the street and all you see is forms walk by you, you have become unempathetic. They're not people to you anymore. Everyone is God in the flesh. And when you pull off your empathy and you block them out with your thing, you have become a monster. And you can justify it any way you want. You can say, well, I'm a progressive monster, or I'm a Democrat, but you're still a monster. You're seeing it one way and you're not seeing it any other way. If they don't believe your way, they're wrong and they must be destroyed or converted. And look at the world. This is what's going on all over. 7 billion people with almost no empathy. And the hard thing about that is that when you're not empathetic, you cannot have compassion. And without compassion, you're living a zombie life. You're just walking around dead. Because with no compassion, there is no love. So this is a wake-up call for each of us, and it's hard. We feel very threatened by things that aren't familiar to us. There are things that we don't want to touch because it might be dangerous. If we did, if I got to know what someone who practices Islam really believes, I might actually start to enjoy what they say. We don't have to agree with anyone, but we have to see where they're coming from. You don't have to become them. If you are a Democrat, you don't have to become a Republican. But you should see where they're coming from. What makes them a Republican? What are their fears? What are they really afraid of? And what do they really want? What is their vision? And why are they like they are? And that goes for all political beliefs. It goes for everything. I'm going to say, as a Buddhist, that I am totally 100% against war. War is the ultimate of not having any empathy. It has caused us so much trouble. Look what we did to the American Indians. Look what we did to the Africans. Look what we did to the Chinese. And even the Japanese. Anyone that's not like us at any given time. It could even be someone like an Irishman or a Polishman, someone from Poland. We have no empathy, and when we have no empathy, we can treat them any way we want. Standing Rock in the middle of winter, a blizzard. The American Indians are standing there trying to stop a pipeline going through their sacred ground. And men went up and turned water, sprayed them down with water in sub-freezing weather. You wouldn't do that to a dog. No empathy. So, each one of us has a big task. And that task is to at least try to see what the other person is seeing. You don't have to agree. They may be really violent and very awful, but try to find out why they're like they are, why they're so stuck. And you may not be able to unstick them, but at least take the time to treat them as a human being. Take time to try to have a dialogue about things you can agree on. We get stuck up on those points where we don't agree. Maybe you don't, I don't know, maybe you like cats and I like dogs, so we're going to sit there and fight and argue about cats and dogs. Why do that? Why not take the time to figure out why some person likes a cat? And they may not even try to find out why you like dogs. It doesn't have to go both ways. It's just you. You are the light of the world. Your life is the message. If there was ever a time that we needed to stand up and be the light in the middle of this darkness, this is it. If there was ever a time that we needed to be peace in the midst of all of this chaos and anger and outrage, is there ever a time more than now that we needed to show compassion and love for those who have lost so much? There was a young man that shot a whole bunch of people, including his own sister. Does anybody ever try to think what his parents are going through right now? They lost 2 children. Empathy. The people that are doing the shootings and the mass killings, the people that are beating up the demonstrators, the people that are putting men in cages that you wouldn't put an animal in, the people who are taking babies away from their mothers have no empathy. They couldn't do that if they had empathy. And it's not taught in our schools. It's not taught anywhere. Oh, a few places. I can't say anywhere, but not enough. But it starts with you. I suggest that you do your best to understand where other people are coming from. It does not justify their horrible, maybe violent beliefs, but at least try to find out why they're like they are. And I would say, from what I have seen, when I look at the radical and the violent groups that are going around, that they all have one thing, and well, 2 things in common actually. They have fear. They're terrified of any other point of view. And they have no empathy. And I realize that we like to sit and meditate and go into super conscious states. But I'm telling you, this is a wake-up for us as monks and as spiritual aspirants, that this is the time when we don't need to be changing stuff out there, but we need to start looking inside of ourselves. Each one of us, are we guilty of that? Are we guilty of being inhuman? Are we guilty of being violent because we're afraid of somebody else's point of view? Like I say, you don't have to agree, but at least see why and where they're coming from. And they may be coming from a very insane point of view. The idea behind this particular Sangha is that we don't really try to change anything outside of us, but we're looking inside of us all the time. I can look outside and I can see 10,000 things that need to be fixed. But maybe what I need to do is take that looking glass and set it down and pick up a mirror and look at myself and say, where am I guilty? Maybe not to the extent that I see out there, but where am I guilty of making something less than human? Where am I guilty of not loving my neighbor as myself? Where am I guilty of not praying for my enemies? And I don't mean praying in a voodooistic way where they'll all die, but praying that they would become enlightened, maybe have a little bit of empathy for once. We can't change them out there until we change ourselves. When we change ourselves, everything changes around us. I told a young man in Hawaii once, he asked me very sincerely, he said, well, he has two questions. He says, are you awake? And I looked at him and I said, of course I am. What would you like? And he said, the world is full of wars, all this stuff going on. How can we ever find peace? And I told the young gentleman, sir, you'll never find peace, world peace outside of you until you find world peace inside of you. And I'm telling you tonight that the only way you can find world peace inside of you is to seriously be empathetic. To understand, maybe not agree. I'm not saying you have to sell out, but at least find out why people are doing what they're doing. And I would venture to say that 90% of the time they're doing it because they are terrified of anything unlike their own reality. We are the light of the world. We show the light in the darkness. How can you be peace in the midst of chaos if you have chaos going inside of your soul? How can you be the light when you have the darkness of prejudice and bias and anger and revenge inside of you? So that's why we meditate. We meditate to purify our soul. We're here to get rid of the darkness. Enlightenment is getting rid of the darkness. It's that simple. Love does not know the color of skin. Love is not hampered by political or religious beliefs. Love reaches across the chasm to do what it can, but only from a pure heart. We must perfect ourselves. Otherwise, we're just throwing gasoline on the fire. We must be in the world, but not of it. You are better than that. You are the divine love manifested inside this body that's changing constantly. And you're only here for a few short decades. So what we ask ourselves is, what have we done to advance ourselves and to spread the Dharma? And what's preventing us from doing it? And I'm suggesting that rather than going out into the street, which is okay, but before you do that, find love. There's enough anger, there's enough outrage, there's enough revenge to go around. But there's not enough wisdom. There's absolutely no empathy. And therefore no compassion. We face a future where people can just kill each other by the billions. Or we face a future where we can have billions of people working together, regardless of religion, race, or language, or culture. That's a dream I like. But if you want a fearful dream, just think of the negative, and that's what you'll have. What you focus on, you tend to become. So on this day of great pain and sorrow, and great grief, and anger, and outrage, and self-righteous judgment, we need to do better. We need to do better. And we will. You would not be in this room or watching this video if it wasn't in you to do better. Put down your looking glass and pick up the mirror. Look deep within your soul. I have seen some of you overcome incredible odds, abuse, of what some of you deal with, the death of thousands of people, of what some of you go into orphanages across the border, be with those little kids, of what some of you support spiritual teachers wherever you can find them. You're an amazing bunch of people. You are not the problem. You are the answer. But we have to even perfect what we have. I've had a tough couple of weeks. I've had all the horrors of human history meet me in my meditation. I've seen the inhumanity that we've all had throughout the last 30,000 years. And now it's time to change. It's time for a new world. A world that has empathy. A world that has compassion. And we have to start within ourselves. It's okay to demonstrate and to protest, but understand that what you touch touches you. And is that what the world needs? Well, maybe it does. But understand fully what you're protesting about. Have empathy. They have feelings. They have families. Or maybe they've just been abused and they have none of that. And they're angry that other people do. Who knows? Have you bothered to look? Have you bothered to see the suffering? We live in a time when 1% or 2% of the people own 50% of the wealth. How is that even possible? No empathy. That's how it's possible. A few years ago, one of the wealthiest men in the world, I think he had $60 billion, he's in Mexico, and he built this beautiful museum, millions of dollars, so that they would have some culture. And I thought about it, and I thought, he has what, I think at the time he had maybe $6 billion. He was wealthy beyond words. And I thought, how much better would it have been for him to take 4 of his $6 billion and fix the roads, made the schools better, paid the policemen, just did some infrastructure. He would have been a saint. But no, he had to build a museum. Although that's a culturally good thing, he had no empathy. What are you doing with your life? And how are you treating others? It's not easy. It's not easy to walk into a grocery store and actually look at people and say hi to them. And not just a cursory hi, but a recognition hi. To smile. To be friendly. To give a damn. You like to be treated that way. So why don't you treat others? That's what we have to ask ourselves. That's the mirror. I like to be treated that way. How do I treat others? So this is a powerful teaching here. And it requires you to do some real soul searching. But if you approach this properly, it will transform you from being a victim or being whatever you're stuck in. It will transform you into being a saint. You will no longer be part of the problem. You will be the answer. Not by anything other than the force of your life itself. Your life is your message. What is your message? Does it have compassion? Does it have empathy? Does it give a damn? And I venture to say, the people in this room I know, it does matter. You're the answer. It's a hard thing to look at yourself sometimes. But in a world that's falling apart, in a world where an angry person so dehumanizes someone unlike themselves, makes them a threat, so they can just go out and indiscriminately shoot people. We'll change. So we will develop empathy. We do not have to agree with the other person, but we have to take a little bit of time to figure out why they're so afraid, what's driving them. And then if you are truly empathetic, you understand everything, you can speak from wisdom rather than vengefulness and anger. So on August 4th, 2019, the world is on fire. And it's our turn to stand up and be what we can be. But we start with ourselves. I want you to practice noticing people who walk by you on the street. Don't let them be shadows. These are human beings. They're dealing out their karmas just like you are. Touch the highest, touch the best, see God in everything, because the divine is in everything. There is nothing outside of you that is not you. There's just one. One is many, but the many are made of one. Don't feel guilty. Just begin new. Start with small steps. Start with the little things, like when you go to the grocery store and you see people putting cans on the shelf. You say hi. Isn't that what you would like to have somebody do? Sometimes you don't need to just help everybody. Sometimes if you see somebody and you realize that they're going to take whatever you give them and do harm to themselves or harms to others, because you have empathy, you don't contribute to their delinquency. But you try to point them in another direction. Whatever, you'll have to figure this out. It's your life. It's your salvation. You have to work it out. I'm here telling you my point of view, something that I've worked out and continue to work out. But if you're waiting for somebody else to fix you, you've got to put that mirror up. If you're waiting for somebody outside of you to fix you, you're into duality. And that won't fix you. It's all inside of you. It's all inside of you. Focus on the highest. Focus on the brightest. If there be any praise, if there be any virtue, if there be any honesty, think on these things. Look for it. Good luck.